Greetings, everybody, and welcome to our monthly presentation for May 2025. My name is Thomas Boxall. I am the past president of CIPS Saskatchewan and the Saskatchewan representative on the CIPS National Board. CIPS Saskatchewan is the Saskatchewan chapter of the Canadian Information Processing Society, or Canada's Association of IT Professionals. Before we get started, I would like to recognize that CIPS Saskatchewan represents all IT professionals in the province of Saskatchewan, and as such, we'd like to acknowledge that Saskatchewan sits on the traditional lands of the peoples of the treaties of 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota, Dakota, Lakota, Dene, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. For our guests today that are unaware what CIPS is, CIPS is the Association of IT Professionals with a goal of promoting IT professionalism within the IT industry. CIPS promotes three professional designations: the Information Systems Professional, or ISP, which is the only government-recognized IT professional designation in Canada; the ITCP, or Information Technology Certified Professional, which is an internationally recognized IT professional designation, of which CIPS was one of the founding members of ITCP. And finally, the Associate IT Professional, or AITP designation, which is awarded to students who graduate from a CIPS accredited post-secondary institution. CIPS offers a wide range of services, including luncheons, accreditations for universities, technical colleges, certifications, and is the voice of Canadian IT professionalism within Canada and around the world. For more information about CIPS and our membership, please go to cips.ca. We could not put these presentations on if it wasn't for our sponsors, and at this time I'd like to acknowledge that we have a platinum sponsor, which is SaskTel. SaskTel has been our platinum sponsor for over 10 years. Furthermore, I'd like to recognize the hard work of our volunteers and staff. Without them, we would not be able to put on these presentations. So without further ado, I'm going to briefly introduce our speaker for today. I'm not going to go into her bio because I'm going to let her do that. She's very good to be able to present herself. Our speaker today is Dr. Cindy Gordon, and she is the CEO and founder of Sales Choice. Today, we'll be doing a presentation called Future Proofing Our AI Programs. So Dr. Cindy Gordon.
Thank you so much, Thomas, and to everyone here. I wish I was sitting around the kitchen table with you, but hopefully we can have a nice conversation. I'm actually out in Edmonton, Alberta today, and it's just really nice to be out in Western Canada. That's where I grew up. We're going to do three things today. One, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company. I'm not going to spend too much time on me because Mr. and Mrs. Google you can easily do, but I think the context of what we do and how long we've been embracing AI and building AI use cases, I think will give you context that we're not newbies. I want to really go into the regulatory environment, mainly from a global perspective, because I also teach AI ethics and law, pretty steeped into the governance practices and also it's called the moving trajectory of legislation. Just so you've got that macro view, it's an area where often the technology professionals aren't necessarily totally attuned to, but I thought that might be helpful. And then I'm really going to turn it over to Thomas to tell the story of the work that we've been doing with SaskTel for the last 4 years. It's been just a thrilling ride on many dimensions, just to talk about where we're at in that journey and some of the insights. So it's I think a pretty practical oriented session. I really do hope that any questions that you have, that you put them in the chat so that Maria or Thomas can decide on who's going to answer the question. But thank you so much for coming out and sharing your precious time with us today. In terms of Sales Choice, we've been in the market now since 2012, building AI applications and use cases. Our first product, Sales Insights, is what we're going to really sort of talk about that we've been doing at SaskTel. But we have also another new product, Mood Insights, which is a pretty cool app that's just been launched with the Vendesta marketplace out in Saskatchewan. Very, very new. And that one really deals with how are people feeling and using some Gen AI methods to classify things in some very unique ways. And then we do a lot of AI data governance transformation, as well as, kind of looking at the stack from a machine learning ops perspective and really helping to guide organizations on how they can really get to, I think, a positive return on investment. Because this area, if you go in and you don't really plan effectively, efficiently with all the moving parts, you know, your odds are very low of succeeding. Won't dwell on companies we've worked with. We've been busy. We really try and publish a lot. I think that's important for you to know that we have one foot both in business but also in academia. We like to stay very close to universities and international research centers, mainly because the number of papers that are coming out on a daily basis keep us really attuned to new methods in engineering, maybe new algorithmic approaches, maybe incremental insights on issues. When we'll talk about some of the issues, particularly on the Gen AI front. Won't dwell on recognitions. Like I said, there's lots of info out there. But I do want you to know, before I get into the core content, that there is a really good knowledge hub at Sales Choice. We really care about everybody learning. We've been working pretty hard on publishing papers. This is a
David
series.
Joy. This
Sorry.
mine, I guess.
Sorry, was that a question or just someone talking in the background?
No, just would ask people if they would please mute their microphones if they're when they come in. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. So there's a series of papers there that I encourage you to read. It just kind of goes into some other research. We've curated this with Ernst & Young and also a leading recruiting company, Bedford, that's associated with TransSearch International. So lots of good content in there to help people learn. So I thought I'd start off, and because there's likely a lot of technologists here, and there's probably a number of you that have computing science backgrounds, masters, maybe some doctorates. But I do think it's important for anybody to recognize that we don't have total universality within the legal environments and what AI is. And obviously, the definition of interpretations, you know, even with the academic community, you'll have some variance. But there are some constructs, I think, as you build your AI policies to at least be aware of that can influence how you position your language. In Canada, the ADA Act, which is effectively part of Bill C-27, has not been ratified. In other words, there are early drafts. There's a new advisory team that's just been identified. And obviously now with our new federal government, we anticipate that they'll start to make more progress. The EU AI Act, I'm going to talk a fair bit today because I think if you are looking for a definition, I'd recommend you use that one. And really, essentially, it means a machine-based system designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy and may exhibit, and I underscore, may exhibit adaptiveness after deployment. So they've evolved their definition to take into account some of the risks as it relates to generative AI. You probably may or may not know that when Trump came into play, one of the first orders that he made was to cancel Biden's White House executive order for AI, which was the blueprint. A lot of great work was in there for creating safe and secure, trustworthy AI practices. That's effectively been disbanded, and we're waiting for the US official position. There's been a new team put in place. But if you were looking for relevancy there, you'll see that it's pretty fragmented across the US with more leadership at the state level. And I'll go into those aspects in a few minutes. Big picture point, if you haven't read the Stanford AI Index report, it comes out on an annual basis. It really tracks where we are at in the evolution of different AI methods as it relates to human performance. There's only now 2 areas left where AI has not superseded, superseded human performance, and that is in high-level competition level math, and also in, believe it or not, basic reading level comprehension. But with the developments that are well underway, especially on advanced mathematical computation, they do expect that we'll probably close that gap in less than 2 years. So the main takeaway here is that all the aspects of human intelligence, even though we like to say we have more emotional intelligence, it's just very important to know in the field of augmented computing, we are really, really closing that gap really quickly. So we're going into a period in our life where we have to be very alert to the methods and the controls to ensure that humans actually have the control aspects. And I want to underscore that. And the way the laws will evolve, certainly in the democratic countries, will, for any high risk or mid risk applications, look for the auditability of the right controls being put in place. On the Gen AI front, which obviously is an exciting field to be in, what I often find is that people aren't necessarily aware of the universe of different generative AI technology, LLMs that could be applied to solve different use cases. And so we always stress in our company to, have, once you've got your problem set and your data, to actually plug in and test different LLMs in terms of their predictive outcomes. And just as a point, a lot of people like to migrate to OpenAI, maybe Anthropic from the US. Canada has Cohere, and also Midjourney out of France. Mistral out of France. And we have found that the Mistral platform is absolutely world class, also less expensive, something to think about. And so we mainly plug into the Bedrock Amazon infrastructure to test different modalities for generative AI applications. But just really want to encourage you, if you're an engineer and you're looking at developmental constructs, don't just plug into one LLM to test your use case against. It's very, very important that you recognize they've been trained on different data sets. Some are going to be stronger in certain dimensions, and you have to keep your eye very alert to the evolution and the speed of this entire marketplace. On the LLM fronts, most of you probably already know that, we've got huge issues in misappropriation of copyright content. There are a number of legal cases before the courts as we speak against OpenAI. It's going to be very interesting to see how the courts rule in New York, in terms of the case with the New York Times. I suspect that they'll settle on some other aspect, but there are, concerns about copyright law. I heard actually yesterday from a group of lawyers, and this is pretty timely information, that in Edmonton, I shouldn't say Edmonton, but in the Queen's Bench in Alberta, that they have indicated, training off of, scanned data from the internet is an example of fairness attribution and is not an infringement on copyright. So there's a lot of buzz going on in the legal community on the implications of our privacy laws and not having alignment there. So again, it's a bit of a gong show. I think we need to understand that. The other piece that has really got my attention, the hallucinations, I know that, that will eventually get sorted out. But the piece that's got my brain thinking a little bit harder is on the deliberate intentionality of lying. And that's another area of research, right? Where you may have to have other LLMs that determine, was the actual truth held back and what were the reasons why. So this field, is one that has risks inherently, and why many large organizations, particularly publicly traded, mainly in the financial services industry, very tight controls of when LLMs may be used externally. So a lot of the innovations going on in internal applications, and I would say lots of constraints on external customer-facing applications. I don't know if anybody was in Paris at all during the AI Action and Safety Summit that happened in February this year, a very seminal event. What's interesting there was the Paris Accord, which was a unification of over 60 countries came together to sign a very peaceful accord in terms of looking at AI internationally and the world that we want to create for society and future generations. The only two countries that didn't sign on that accord were the US and also the UK, although we do anticipate the UK will be signing here shortly. There have been lots of discussions going on. In terms of the US, what's important to note is that they are really stressing a more of a deregulated environment, far more innovation focused, very light controls at the federal government level. And you'll see here that's not necessarily the case at the state level. So the complexities of taking product and services to market into the US, you must be very alert to the different jurisdictions. And this the overhead that organizations are going to have to incur with legal, having the right lawyers that have experts in these domains. Particularly McCarthy Tetro has some really strong experts. I would be remiss if I didn't mention. I think that they're really one of the, especially Charles Morgan over there, are definitely one of the major leaders in Canada across jurisdictional aspects of AI. On the European front, because they came out earlier, they're very risk-based oriented, ethics-driven, much like the GDPR extensionality of the privacy legislation. China, not to surprise, very state-driven, control-heavy, and maybe some inconsistencies as well from a regulatory perspective. In Canada, we're lagging. I think that's fair to say. We had an opportunity to be out front. But things got held up and they're really just getting initiated. The new advisory group was just pulled together and announced about 30 days ago. A few of these points I've mentioned, but one of the developments that just happened in April, late April this year, is that the White House in the US did outline a specific procurement guidelines for budgeting with minimal restrictions. So again, they're reinforcing a much lighter approach to market-driven AI safety, which is causing concerns as the EU looks to the US. The EU would like to have more AI safety guardrails, but I don't think that that's going to happen, based on what we can see in terms of the developments. On the EU front, it's probably one of the best things you could read if you've got an appetite for reading a couple hundred pages. But the reason I think it's good reading is it highlights specific examples where AI definitely has risk attributions. In other words, is prohibited by law, and the penalties can be, 8 to 10 million. Just to highlight the very severe consequences for releasing a product into the market that's classified as a high risk. A higher risk application, a good example would be social scoring, facial scoring as well. These are considered very high risk, unacceptable applications. And also various military uses of AI are also often considered prohibited. So getting through the clarity to move from something that's considered a high risk to an unacceptable, there will be third-party reviews and verifications to market those products in the EU. And then obviously limited risk, which, every day we use AI, obviously is using in our cell phones and all kinds of different applications. The area there that is obviously most concerning is how is that data being used? Might be classified as limited risk, but I still think we're all wise enough to know the transparency of how data might be used after we've given consent is sometimes a bit of a black hole. On the US front, these are just some examples, and this is where I probably spend most of my time, is understanding what are the laws that are happening in various US jurisdictions at the state level. And there's a lot of progressiveness being done throughout the states. You can also see that many of them are high democratic states as well. So you don't necessarily see Florida up here, for example. So in New York, which is a high democratic state, one of the laws that they put out quite early in July 2023 was rules on automated employment decision tools. So that means if you're building an HR application for recruiting, for example, that you would have to have an annual bias audit on the data that you're using to train your AI model. And so those rules and those laws do come with fines. The Colorado Act will be in place by February of next year, and that's on high-risk AI systems for ensuring that there are very specific governance practices that create a presumption of care. So a good example there would be if you're doing an AI application on an energy grid, something that would have maybe catastrophic impacts to a community, that your governance practices have very detailed audit compliance, maybe third-party reviews, and all of those constructs. If there was a risk, you would have the evidence from a legal point of view to rebuttal that you had good care practices. And then the Utah AI Policy Act, which was put into effect in May of last year, focuses on generative AI. And so you're starting to see generative AI laws being put into place. And that's regarding the training of the data sets, like the data set that you have to train the model, where was it sourced? Do you have permission on those data sets? Have you done data bias verifications? There will be increased scrutiny on applications that don't necessarily have an assurance review or a third-party review. So there is a lot of overhead in taking AI applications to market to build the trust that's needed. I've already mentioned that China, no, I didn't mention China. China did sign the Paris Summit Safety Declaration. So I think that actually sent out a very positive signal into the global ethics ecosystem. And I think most people were quite surprised that the UK didn't. People were not surprised that the US did not sign. Now, at the broader level, there is a war going on, and the war in the sense of the literal innovation war, in terms of first on base, and China's been very, very clear. There were just an announcement with Prime Minister Xi, I think 2 weeks ago, about ensuring that China's manufacturing chips, they would have the capabilities for that entire supply chain in-house and wouldn't need to rely on American chip manufacturers like NVIDIA or Intel or others. And so these kinds of signals of self-sufficiency are escalating. And at the same time, that's really driving many of I'd call it, the Republican positions of why they don't want to put a lot of restrictions on AI innovation. Will there be a consequence for us as humans in ethics and values? I think everybody knows the answer is yes. But until there's different leaders in play, the tides will swim. Where they're heading at this point. So how do we get AI right is a big question. And having been involved in this industry for quite some time, there's so many takeaways, but it always starts with, honestly, solving the right problem, the right question with the right people, and having the right stakeholders and the sustaining ability. 75% of AI projects don't go beyond the pilot stage. I mean, these are huge, disappointing results. On the return on investment stage, they're running below 5%, right? There's tons of global research coming in. So you've got this disconnect between investments and the hype and moving into the reality of as they say, as a northern Alberta girl, like, where's the beef? Right? Like, where's the payback? So in order to have successful outcomes, you really need to ensure you've got the right starting gate, that you've done the thorough AI readiness assessments, and that the executives and the board, especially if you're publicly traded, are well aware of the long tail of moving into AI. It's not like traditional software development. And I think those of you that work in AI-related fields, you know that there's some very distinct differences. These models need continual nurturing, continual monitoring, and it's not to say that in other applications we don't maintain them, but there can be model drift in AI projects. So that scrutiny, constant reviews, having the right data scientists, and also the right algorithmic approaches to solve different use cases can be very much fraught with making a lot of errors. A recent report just came out from KPMG. Pretty sure everybody knows who they are. But 67% of global users reported low to moderate acceptance of AI. And it's interesting, the trusting aspect. You will see more and more articles on that in terms of general citizens comfort, etc., and are they getting the right disclosure of how their data is being used. So these are some of the backdrops that are out there, with any innovation curve, and this is a big one. Things in time do settle down as we figure out the approaches and the methods to drive successful outcomes. Now, how we've come at this at a macro level, and I don't know if it's because of the long-term heritage of doing, large-scale strategic planning in mid to large enterprises primarily, is really having all the right stakeholders around the table, because you cannot do it just as an IS professional. You really absolutely need the individuals that are from the data, compliance, regulatory. Your lawyers are your best friends. and also being very sensitive to the ecosystem and the stakeholders that are not just your customers, but the unions or other activists. Like taking a holistic process or a holistic view really does make a difference in forming that governance structure, but also setting up a center of excellence. And certainly can talk to you more in the Q&A if you're curious about where the best practices are and setting up centers of excellence and, deciding, is your IS organization really have all the right skills to take on that leadership? It's very important that, you're putting in resources that have that expertise and experience. And then there's a whole entire life cycle around different value levers that can be reported. I've been working for the last 2 years on a new book. It'll be, I think, number 15, but it'll be out probably early next year. I'm writing it with Kathy Kobe, who's the global Ernst & Young partner for AI assurance. And it's been an interesting research project to just dive into the different new metrics that are required for measuring value of AI systems and how they need to extend the new KPIs. So can certainly talk to you a little bit about that maybe in the Q&A, but you might want to, be alert to that publication because it's going to be full of just precious gems on how you can take this construct that's here to life and what are the various inputs and outputs that are needed. So it gives me great pleasure to stop talking. I know that was a lot to take in. I think I have 3 key away messages before I turn things over to Thomas to share a story. Is number one, don't get started with AI on just a total skunk works piece. Because it usually you don't go very far. I mean, this is very serious work. And I find that if the CEO and the executives aren't aligned, educated, on board, you don't go anywhere very fast. So we spend a lot of our time educating often boards of directors and executives about what it takes to execute AI effectively. And you got to find your champions that can embrace and understand. And I'm going to turn things over to an incredible champion, Thomas Boxall, who I've had the pleasure of working with now for nearly 2 years. And he can share the story. And it's not to say we've got it all figured out, but we figured out a lot of it. So I'll turn that over and look forward to answering any questions that you may have. So Thomas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. It's actually only been 1 year, but it's still,
Feels
yeah,
like you.
we got so much done in that last year. It's been quite surprising. But yes, so we at SaskTel had a challenge that we had been trying to accomplish for about 5 years to date. And that main challenge has always been we wanted to get a full view of our customers, or the 360-degree customer view. But there was 2 major challenges that we had with regards to this. The first challenge, as you can see here, is multiple different systems had a component of that information that we needed to bring together, and all those systems were connected uh, not proportionally to each other. So we would have, for instance, our CRM system would be connected to our ERP system. Our campaign system would feed into our CRM system. Our website would connect to our customer service portal or our field services portal. Everything didn't mesh well together, and we couldn't get that 360-degree view with the tools that we had at the time. The second big challenge that we had was our data was too large and too complex. So you can imagine the interconnectivity between all these different systems, the multiple different wires, and anybody who's familiar with connection theory, you can see how once you get past a certain level, and we got 8 different elements here, you're getting in the millions of different connections within the data. Something that is not manageable by a human person. So how did we eat this elephant? So we looked at the challenges that we were having, and we said, we're not going to be able to do this alone. So we said, let's A, bring in the experts, but B, let's eat this elephant one bite at a time. We decided to first focus on our, actually, you can go back to the previous stage.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's fine. we wanted to focus on our CRM system. And the main reason for that was we wanted to make sure, like our CRM system, we use Salesforce. We wanted to make sure that that was going to be the bedrock for our 365 customer view going forward. And we brought in Sales Choice as our AI experts to help us go through this journey. Now the next slide. So the big thing that, as Cindy pointed out in her previous slide, there were several different areas that we were challenged to look at within each of these different components as we went forward. So the first thing that we had a hard look at was governance. So we asked, what AI governance processes are we going to need? And for us, what it was we knew that we didn't have the expertise in-house. So again, like I said, we needed to coordinate with the experts that are out there that we had access to. But part of that was we needed to communicate and collaborate in a way that was meaningful and would bring value back into SaskTel. So we created, so my predecessor created a group called the SEAL team, or the Sales Excellence Acceleration Lab. And this group directly works with Sales Choice to help on governance, on governance, process design, and also the tools and technologies that we implemented over the last 4 years. From there, we started to develop the strategy. So we wanted to modernize our CRM strategies to take advantage of the AI processes and practices. Our organization has always been based on a hypothesis verification process. So that's our legacy of our systems, our strategies. People had a hunch. We looked at the data to prove that hunch. The one big switch that we did over these last 4 years is we separated ourselves from that legacy mentality. We said having a hypothesis and proving it is just looking for something that you want to see as an outcome and backing it up with whatever data you can in whatever way you can. It doesn't provide value. So we took the approach and we said, what were the outcomes that we were looking for? What are the things that we are trying to achieve? And we looked at the data and said, ask the questions: are we actually meeting? What does the data say about our current state within the outcomes that we want? And we started to develop our strategies around what was the data telling us, not what are we trying to prove the data to tell us. Third, we worked very closely with Sales Choice to go through our people, our skill sets, the skills that we wanted to modernize within our operations. So the biggest one that happened right off the bat is we had our HR department work with Cindy and her team to reevaluate all of our job descriptions. Some of our job descriptions had been the same since the 1990s. So almost over 20 years of not being reviewed. So we went through and we modernized those job descriptions. From that, we then went back to the idea of the questions. What were the outcomes we wanted? And we built the KPIs around what were the outcomes we wanted to have. Having these KPIs is great, but now we needed to transition people. We updated our rewards and recognition system so that it aligned with those KPIs. The carrot and stick approach to sort of encourage and promote those who were following down the path of the transition path to where we want them to be, and punishments for those who were trying to stay in the old model that was not being productive for SaskTel. And finally, we went on a recruitment for new leaders, new ways of thinking of things. We adopted a more agile and iterative methodology for how we look at how we do business. What was working, what wasn't working, how can we build on what was working, how can we share the skill sets and the practices that were leading to success. From there, we wanted to become more customer-centric. So part of that was modernizing our sales processes to be more transparent and focused on progress. Specifically in our case, our main goal was to we wanted to meet or exceed the industry standard for base revenue growth. So base revenue growth is 2.3% is the industry standard. We wanted to meet or exceed that. Everything we did within our processes, we highlighted with the information that was provided from our new systems and our new tools to feed back into our processes and strategies, so that we can figure out what it is that we need to do to adjust to make us move forward towards those goals. One of the byproducts of this is that we went through our entire division's RACI and reevaluated it from the ground up, changing roles and responsibilities throughout our organization to make sure they better align with the strategies that we're implementing. Throughout this all, you would ask, what was the quality of our data? And in short, not good. It was functional. It met our needs for many, many, many years. But 5 years of using Salesforce, we had multiple areas of tech debt within our data. The AI that we implemented, Sales Insights that we implemented, showcased how much technical debt we actually had. And this is one of the side effects, and we'll be going through this a little bit later on in the slides. But it was very interesting to say that we always knew there was legacy fields that were not being utilized, but it wasn't until we actually turned on the engine and it was like, oh, hey, look up how much junk we have in the trunk, to say to make a point about it. The result of this was that it gave us a very clear line of data remediation tasks that we can establish to go forward and clean up some of that old garbage within it, get to that data completeness and data accuracy that we need to give us the information to make better decisions. So what sort of tools do we bring in? So we always had Salesforce as our primary CRM system. We implemented Sales Choice's Sales Insight engine, and that was the main framework of the machine learning engine. Can we ask you to please mute your microphone? Thank you. The Sales Insight, which is our main AI predictive model that we had implemented. Further from there, we started to develop some of the other technologies that we needed to enhance how we are going to make our sales. So Microsoft Fabric, we upgraded our Power BI and reporting to a Fabric instance, and on top of it, we brought in Zoom Info for some of our new sales growth, especially outside the province of Saskatchewan. Finally, as an organization, what is the best practices and how far are we from that? So this is where, again, we really leveraged the expertise of Sales Choice to help modernize our practices and make them align closer to what the industry is looking for. We're on a long path still to get there, but we've made huge strides towards that. Next slide. So sales, like I said, Sales Insights was the AI tool that we implemented at SaskTel, and the main thing that Sales Insights provides for us is it provides two major components. One is a prediction rating on each opportunity that we have in the hopper, and then the second is a rating classification. So the big thing with this is that it gave you an idea based on the machine learning that no human would be able to do. It was just too much data, too many connections, too many interactions. So no human would ever be able to do this analysis to be able to figure out this rating. But a prediction rating that was much more accurate than our human estimation that we were doing prior to that. And then second, the rating system of it's just 3 ratings, A, B, and C, top, mid, bottom. That allowed sales reps to directly see what were the opportunities they should be going after right now, and what opportunities they should be putting off, and what opportunities they should avoid. This also provided, when we looked at the managers for our sales reps, this provided them a pulse of their team. It gave them an idea of areas that were potential risks or issues that they could address at an earlier level. And then finally, at the director level, our directors never had a 100% accurate view into whether their strategies, marketing strategies, were working. Many times this process would be months or even quarters or even years behind what it was. So they would have to wait a very long period of time to see whether or not a strategy was working, and if it was working, what type of customers was it working on. This tool allowed them to say, okay, we're seeing within this industry, within this line of business, this sort of increase and this sort of benefit. The next slide. One of the tools that came along with this is, so we developed all of the KPIs where we wanted to measure where we wanted to go in the future, the outcomes that we wanted to see. The Sales Insight tool allowed us to embed those KPIs directly into the tool itself, allowing for that instant feedback on why is it that our opportunities were not giving the predictions that the sales reps thought they should be giving. So we were able to take that information and use it for long-term planning into what was effective, what wasn't effective, and where we are in that progress of maturing our sales practices to better reach that goal of 2.3% base revenue growth. The one thing that we're seeing with this is that we're seeing a lot of factors that are coming out within our sales reps. So we have, within every organization, you have your top sales reps, you have your mid sales reps, and you have your bottom sales reps. That's the same within any organization. We were finding that as we started to analyze our top sales reps, we started to see certain actions, certain patterns, certain things that they did that were different from every other sales reps. Our managers and our directors were able to capture those skills and provide them to our sales reps that were not in that top category. This has raised the general quality of our sales reps overall across the organization, well, business sales and solutions, to the point where some of our worst sales reps have now become decent sales reps. Many of our decent sales reps have now pushed themselves up into the top tier of sales reps, and our top tier sales reps have produced more than they've ever been able to do previously. Next slide. So I have a background in data architecture and data science, so this is one of the areas that I totally love. If I had this tool 10 years ago, I would have been, it would have been ecstatic. So part of the data completeness functionality of the tool was that, and this could be utilized across any type of AI tool that does analytics, machine learning on your system. It provided a clear visibility into what was providing the prediction ratings within your organization. The one thing that and this is something you're going to find with any tool that you implement, any AI tool you implement in your organization. This is something we learned with multiple different areas within using Sales Insight. There is the business case model that your AI model was built for, and that's what you want to make your decision around how you're going to implement that within your system. But the nice thing is that there's these niche cases that come off to the side of them that provide additional value that you didn't actually realize was there. And within the data completeness, one of the biggest things with this was that we had a problem with people not getting their data in the system. So anybody that does any sort of searching into the memes around CRM systems will eventually come across the one meme where if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist. And that was one of the things that became very clear with this is we were able to look at the data and saying, people are not filling in certain critical information that was providing very valuable information to both the AI tool, but also our organization as a whole. So we started implementing Boy Scout methods at our sales reps levels in order to boost up the completeness of our system. Next slide. And as a result, as you can see here, over time, more and more of the critical information became visible, and our accuracy of our predictions within the AI model became more and more aligned to what the actual real world scenario was. So as an example, as of this morning, we have a 90% accuracy rate with every prediction that the model says that if we're going to win this, we end up winning it. 90% accuracy rate. And then coincidentally, also we have a 60% that if it says we're going to lose it, we actually do lose it. So that one I'm fine with being bad, because it means that 40% of the stuff that it said that we're going to lose, we did actually end up winning those opportunities. One very great side effect that came out of this was, as you can see, there's certain fields that were always red. A lot of those were our legacy fields. These were the points that it instantly highlighted the problem within our data source and said to us, these are the fields that we need to look at for data remediation tasks. So they said, like, every AI tool you have, and when you go to evaluate an AI tool to implement within your organization, you need to have that ROI that you're going to be looking for, and you need to have the business case that you're buying into. But do be aware and do have people within your organization that will look at these sort of things. Like, so as an example, our data scientists team looked at this and said, hey, I didn't know that legacy field still existed in our database. We need to put in a ticket to get that removed. Oh, hey, I didn't know that we had moved to this other field rather than this field. This field's now a legacy field. It would have been nice if, if IT had told us that that was the legacy field. So things that it gave us value beyond just saying, fill in your data. It was, hey, here's a bunch of things, areas that you can actually improve on. Next slide. So one thing that we appreciated at SaskTel was Sales Choice provides an accountability component to their models. So specifically, we have an entire thing that talked about the accuracy. And so I already alluded to this, that we have a 90% accuracy in the predictions of closed won to actually being won, and closed, and a 60% accuracy of closed lost and actually losing the opportunity. Once that trust was built into the system and the model, the one thing that became very interesting with this is that we were able to see these opportunities and analyze these opportunities. And this is where predictively, or well, we empirically, we knew that this was the case, but this confirmed it. Our top tier sales reps, if they said, if the algorithm said they were going to win it, they won it. If the algorithm said they're going to lose it, they lost it. And you could look at the pattern, their data entry, their processes and procedures, the different tools that they would use and how they would use those, how they interact with their customers, and you could narrow in right on into what it was that they were doing that was leading to success. We could then take that and apply it to our mid-tier and bottom-tier sales reps to help boost up their capabilities. So they said, again, the business case was, here's how you build trust in the tool. We saw it and said, hey, now that we trust this tool, here's an additional benefit of this system. We can now use this to basically coach our people to be becoming better sales reps. Next slide. So this is David Ekstrand. He's our CIO and the VP of Business Sales and Solutions. And this is a testimony to what he provided for the work that Sales Choice provided to us. The sales roles involves considerably more analytical and sales leadership skills than any social encounters or contract signing roles in previous decades. And this is alluding to a larger thing that we were seeing within sales, within SaskTel. When you go to implement AI, AI is not intended to replace people. And Cindy brought this up. It's not a replacement. If you go into the process thinking it's going to be a replacement, that you can reduce your overhead, you're going at this the wrong way. There's two components that always come to mind when I think about proper application of AI. First is, so I have a military background, and the military has been working with active in-field AI going way back into the 1990s. And some of the earliest AI deployed had some very negative effects. Automated turrets that luckily didn't have any ammo in it that would turn and identify any human and start pulling the trigger. So NATO very sensibly created a policy called the human pulls the trigger. So with AI, a human must always pull the trigger. You must always have a human making a decision. The AI is there to make your life better, but a human must always make the decision. Second is that every job that you have, every task that you do, you have administrative tasks that you have to do with it. Every organization has bureaucracy. It's unavoidable. AI tools allow you to diminish that administrative burden. And when you diminish that administrative burden, you increase the value of the employee. They can do what they are best at. People, like, you hire people because they do a job, and they do a job better than anybody else that you could have hired for that position. And by reducing the administrative burden, you're increasing the value of the people that you have. You're providing more value to your organization. So one thing I always recommend, and this is, like I said, we've had a lot of success with the sales insight engine. We've seen a great increase to our revenue and our margin over the last year, and it's been a great journey. It's been a hard journey, but it's been a great journey. And the key thing to that has always been make people the best version of themselves.